Okay, boys and girls, today we're going to read a book called Thank You, Omu. Every time you see me in the book, we will stop and monitor our comprehension. Thank You, Omu, written by Oji Mora. On the corner of First and Long Street, at the very top floor, Omu was cooking a thick red stew in her big fat pot for a nice evening meal. She seasoned and stirred it and took a small taste. "What a delicious stew," Omu said. "Tonight's dinner will surely be the best I have ever had." Okay, and here I am. We're going to stop and just make sure. So Omu must be the character that the story is written about. She must be Omu. So let's keep going. With that, Omu put down her spoon and went to read a book before supper. As the thick red stew simmered on the stove, its scrumptious scent wafted out the window and out the door and down the hall and toward the street and around the block until someone was at the door. When Omu opened it, she saw... What did she see? A little boy. "Little boy," Omu exclaimed, "what brings you to my home?" "I was playing with my race car down the hall when I smelled the most delicious smell," the little boy replied. "What is it?" "Thick red stew." Stew," he sighed. "That sure sounds yummy." What do you think she's going to do? Omu thought for a moment. She was saving her stew for dinner, but she had made quite a bit, and it would not hurt to share. "Would you like some?" The little boy nodded, and so Omu spooned out some thick red stew from the big fat pot for her nice evening meal. "Thank you, Omu," the little boy said, and went on his way. So here I am. I'm going to stop and make sure that I understand. I don't understand how the little boy knew to come to Omu's door. So I'm going to go back and look and see if I can figure out why he came to her door. And here we have the first time that we see him, and she asks him why he came. And he says, "I was playing with my race car down the hall when I smelled the most delicious smell." It was the smell. Look, the little boy replied. "What is it?" Okay, so I went back and reread, and I found out that he came to her house because he smelled the soup. And after he smelled the soup, she gave him some, and he went on his way. Okay. With that, Omu closed the door and went back to her book. As she read, her thick red stew's scrumptious scent wafted out the window and out the door and down the hall and toward the street and around the block until someone was at the door. When Omu opened the door this time, she saw... And do we remember what is happening with the smell? Do you think it has... I see the little boy right here. I'm wondering if this police officer is going to come to her house next. Let's see. Oops, I went the wrong way. It was a police officer. "Look, Miss Police Officer," Omu exclaimed, "what brings you to my home?" "I was on duty down the street when I smelled the most delicious smell," Miss Police Officer replied. "What is it?" "Thick red stew." "Ah, stew," she said, and her mouth watered. "That sounds mighty tasty." Omu thought for a moment. There was still enough to share. Would you like some? The police officer nodded. Once again, Omu spooned out some thick red stew from the big fat pot for her nice evening meal. Thank you, Omu, the officer said and went on her way. You know, I'm remembering that we have recently talked about adjectives. Adjectives are words that describe nouns. And look, I'm finding lots of adjectives on our page. It's thick red stew, and it's in a big fat pot, and it's for her nice evening meal. These adjectives also help us understand the story. Because the stew is thick and red and it's in a great big fat pot, I know that it's going to be really good soup. That's why it smells so good. And so for the second time, Omu closed the door and went back to her book. Sure enough, as she read, pay attention to all of these adjectives, her thick red stew's scrumptious scent wafted out of the window and out the door and down the hall and toward the street and around the block until... Now there's the police officer. I wonder who's coming next. Again, someone was at Omu's door. This time when she opened it, she saw a hot dog vendor. What's a hot dog vendor? I'm going to go back. Oh, look, right here. I see this little thing on wheels, and he's got a picture of a hot dog with ketchup and mustard right here. A hot dog vendor must be somebody who sells hot dogs. So I wonder why he is at Omu's house. Mr. Hot Dog Vendor, Omu exclaimed, what brings you to my home? I was selling my hot dogs. Oh, I could have just kept reading too. Look, because it says right here, I was selling my hot dogs down the block when I smelled the most delicious smell, Mr. Hot Dog Vendor replied. What is it? Thick red stew. Oh, stew, the vendor licked his lips. That sounds quite delectable. So here I am, and I'm reminding you to check your comprehension. Now, I needed to know what the word vendor meant, and I went back in my story and I saw him at the hot dog cart, but I could have also kept reading. So sometimes if you keep reading, you'll figure out where you are in the story. Sometimes you have to go backwards. Let's keep going in our story and find out what happens to Omu. So Omu spooned out some thick red stew from the big fat pot for her nice evening meal. Thank you, Omu, the hot dog vendor said, and he went on his way. Throughout the day, people from all across the neighborhood knocked on Omu's door. She fed a shop owner, a cab driver, a doctor, an actor, a lawyer, a dancer, a baker, an artist, a singer, an athlete, a bus driver, a construction worker. Even the mayor stopped by, and each time they knocked, Omu shared. Soon the sky darkened, the street lights brightened, and it was finally time for dinner. But when Omu opened her big fat pot of thick red stew for her nice evening meal, it was empty. Oh no, here I am. We need to check our comprehension. Do we know why it was empty? What do you think? I'm wondering if we go back again, we see all these people that the book says that she shared it with. I think that she shared it with all those people until now she doesn't have any left in her pot. Omu sniffled. There goes the best dinner I ever had. Sorry and blue, she sat at the table with her empty pot. Sorry and blue? She doesn't look blue to me. Wonder what that means, that she's sorry and blue. Well, I know what it means to be sorry. Sometimes when you're sorry, you're sad. And I'm looking at her face, and she doesn't seem to be smiling. So being blue must mean that she's sad. I guess she's sad because she doesn't have anything to eat. But, knock, 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 knock. Who could that be? Omu wondered. And when she opened the door, she saw the little boy, the police officer, the hot dog vendor, the shop owner, the cab driver, the doctor, the actor, the lawyer, the dancer, the baker. Why, everyone she fed today was at her door. I'm sorry, everyone, Omu sighed. My thick red stew is all gone. I have nothing left to share. The little boy tugged at Omu's sleeve. Don't worry, Omu. We're not here to ask. We are here to give. The police officer carried in a fresh salad. The mayor entered with a roast chicken. The baker brought a collection of sweet goodies. Even the little boy presented Omu with something. Everyone who knocked on Omu's door that day squeezed inside her tiny apartment, and together they ate, danced, and celebrated. While Omu's big fat pot of thick red stew was empty, her heart was full of happiness and love. Oh, and here's my picture, so I'm wanting to stop and monitor our comprehension. She was sad, but now she doesn't look sad anymore. I'm thinking that all of these people came to her house and brought her something to eat and shared with her, and they're all friends. Look, they're all smiling. So everybody together has made Omu happy. The dinner was the best she ever had. And boys and girls, do you know why it was the best that she ever had? The little boy had given her this card and it said, "Thank you, Omu." I'm thinking it was the best she ever had because she got to spend it with all of those people. This is an author's note. I'm going to show you on this previous page. Right here's the author's note, but the words were so tiny, I couldn't see them very well, so I made it bigger so that we could see it. And it says here in Igbo, the Nigerian language of my parents, Omu means queen. And this was written by the author. So the author's from some place called Nigeria. And the language that her parents speak is called Igbo. And it says Omu means queen. You know what? I guess that was a good name for Omu because our character acted like a queen. A queen takes care of her subjects. And Omu was taking care of her friends. So I guess that's a good name for the character, isn't it? But we're going to keep going and keep reading. It says, yet for me, growing up, it meant grandma. So Omu not only means queen, but it means grandma. When my grandma cooked, she danced and swayed her hips to the radio as she stirred what was often in a large pot of stew. In the evening, my family would come together at the dinner table for her meal. If a neighbor was visiting, they were invited. If a friend stopped by, they were invited. Everyone in the community had a seat at my grandmother's table. While my grandmother has since passed away, her giving heart has stayed with me. I see it in my mother, my grandmother, my teachers, my mentors, and the other countless powerful women who have shaped my life. This book is a celebration of their loving, giving spirit. So the author wrote this book because she was thinking about her grandmother. I hope you've enjoyed our story. Were you able to monitor your comprehension and understand?